Before we begin, please be aware that this is a true homicide case involving real victims and real families. Some details in this video may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
There's blood on the wall here. There's blood on the wall here.
It's the chilling moment that a woman reveals what really happened in this house of horrors.
When you came in, what did you see?
When I first walked in, I saw blood all over the floor. I saw blood up the wall.
Based on information developed during the course of this investigation, and because of the length of time, it's been 23 days that has passed since Kelsey was last seen, our investigators believe that Kelsey's disappearance is more suspicious and that she is not intentionally avoiding efforts to find her. We are looking at all avenues and our focus is on finding Kelsey.
In November 2018, a crime unfolded in the quiet mountain town of Woodland Park, Colorado, that would shake the community to its core and send shockwaves across the entire nation. What appeared to be a simple missing persons case on Thanksgiving Day quickly spiraled into one of the most calculated, cold-blooded murders Colorado had ever seen. A case so brutal, so meticulously planned, that even veteran FBI agents and seasoned homicide detectives would later describe it as one of the most disturbing they'd ever worked. This wasn't just a murder. It was a betrayal so profound, but deception so layered, that it would expose the darkest capabilities of human cruelty and leave a community asking, how could this happen to someone so loved in a place that felt so safe? The house looked almost normal at first glance. When officers arrived for the welfare check, they found her car parked outside. Inside, there were unwashed dishes in the sink, half-eaten food on the counter. Her belongings were untouched, clothes in the closet, bags in their place. No signs of a struggle, no signs of forced entry, no signs of foul play. But her mother knew better. Something was very, very wrong. So, when family members returned to check the house themselves, they noticed things the police hadn't. The heat was cranked to maximum, sweltering, unbearable. Cinnamon buns sat on the counter, baked days ago but never eaten. The refrigerator looked like it had been recently wiped down. You could still see the streaks. Then they saw it, what looked like blood in the bathroom. They called investigators back immediately. This time, they brought luminol and a cadaver dog. When they sprayed the chemical and killed the lights, everything changed. The house erupted in eerie blue light. Blood everywhere, splattered so high up the walls that someone had to climb to reach it. Pooled across the kitchen floor, smeared on the dishwasher, the stove, the coffee maker. Even on the tin foil covering those cinnamon buns, the ones she'd baked that Thanksgiving morning. Bloody footprints trailed up the stairs. Blood streaked behind the couch. Blood under cabinets. The bathroom mat was missing entirely. Someone had tried to clean this scene. They'd scrubbed for hours, wiping down every surface they could reach. But you can't hide this much blood, not when it's everywhere. DNA testing would soon confirm what investigators feared. It belonged to 29-year-old Kelsey Berreth, a pilot, a flight instructor, and a mother to a 1-year-old daughter. The lead investigator would later say that in his 37 years on the force, this was his first no-body case. Standing in that house, seeing the sheer volume of blood lighting up under the luminol, he knew one thing for certain. Kelsey never left this house alive. But if she didn't leave, where was she? The questions multiplied fast. Her phone had pinged 800 miles away in Idaho, but Kelsey had never been there. Text messages were being sent from her phone days after she vanished, but the words didn't sound like her. Her boss received a message saying she was taking the week off, something Kelsey would never do without explanation. And then there was the last person to see her alive. Someone close to her. Someone she trusted. Someone whose story didn't add up. Kelsey Berreth was only 29 years old, but she'd already built a remarkable life. Friends described her as a country girl at heart. Someone who loved the outdoors, driving tractors, and living simply. She was adventurous and passionate about aviation, working as a flight instructor in Pueblo, Colorado. In an industry dominated by men, Kelsey had earned deep respect through sheer skill and dedication. But what mattered most to Kelsey was her family. Her mother, Cheryl, was her best friend. They spoke every single day. And her greatest joy was her 1-year-old daughter, Kaylee. Kelsey was a devoted, fiercely loving mother who would have done anything for that little girl. That Thanksgiving morning, November 22nd, 2018, Kelsey had been baking cinnamon buns and planning a quiet holiday dinner. She was excited, chatting with her mom about the future. She'd gone to the local Safeway with Kaylee to pick up groceries. Surveillance cameras captured her walking through the store, smiling, calm, holding her daughter's hand. It was the last time anyone saw her alive. What happened in the hours that followed would reveal a plot so twisted, so unthinkable, that it would take investigators across state lines, uncover a web of lies, and expose a killer hiding in plain sight. Before we continue with this case, I want to welcome you to the channel, and if you're returning, thank you so much for your continued support. It truly means the world. Now you're about to hear one of the most shocking cases in recent true crime history. The investigation into Kelsey Berreth's disappearance would uncover secrets no one saw coming. And the truth? It's far worse than anyone imagined. Before Kelsey Berreth became a name etched into true crime history, she was simply a young woman chasing her dreams at 30,000 feet. Born on September 15, 1989 in Moses Lake, Washington, Kelsey grew up with dirt under her fingernails and sky in her eyes. On her family's farm, she spent her childhood alongside her younger brother Clint, 2 years her junior and her constant companion, while other little girls played with dolls. Kelsey was outside driving tractors and bucking bales. Even as a child, she knew exactly what she wanted to be when she grew up: a crop duster pilot. There was something about the freedom of flight, the wide open sky above those Washington fields, that called to her. And Kelsey didn't just dream, she made it happen. After studying aviation in college, Kelsey became a flight instructor. In May 2016, she moved to Colorado for a career opportunity that would change her life. By July 2017, she'd been hired at DOS Aviation in Pueblo, now part of L3 Harris Technologies, where she would train the next generation of American military pilots. Every day, Kelsey made the 60-mile commute each way from her home in Woodland Park to the flight school, determined to do work that mattered. As one of only a few female flight instructors at DOS Aviation, Kelsey stood out. But it wasn't just because she was a woman in a male-dominated field. Her co-workers described her as quiet but sharp, intelligent, sweet, and deeply dedicated. She completed what they called a grueling training program, one that even Air Force veterans with 20 years of experience found difficult. Yet Kelsey excelled. Her students adored her. They signed dollar bills and left them on her desk as tokens of gratitude for her excellent teaching. Despite her small stature, Kelsey could intimidate even large football players when she was in the cockpit. As one colleague put it, there was no doubt who was in charge. She was a natural pilot with an exceptional ability to teach others to fly. On Kelsey's desk sat a Bible with a daily quote calendar. The last page she ever opened was November 21st, 2018. The verse read, "For it is God who works in you." Philippians 2:13. Outside of work, Kelsey loved the simple things. Her morning coffee, especially caramel macchiatos from Starbucks. Going for runs, spending time with God, getting good sleep, and above all, talking to her mother, Cheryl. The two spoke every single day without fail. That bond between mother and daughter was unbreakable. Kelsey Berreth was 29 years old, living her dream and making a difference in the lives of those who would go on to serve their country as military pilots. But in 2016, Kelsey's life was about to change forever. She swiped right on a dating app, and the man on the other side of that screen would become the last person to ever see her alive. In 2016, she met Patrick Frazee, a 32-year-old rancher and farrier from Florissant, Colorado. Patrick lived on his mother Sheila's 35-acre ranch where he trained cattle dogs and cared for horses and donkeys. On paper, he seemed like exactly the kind of man a country girl like Kelsey might fall for. The couple hit it off immediately. Before long, they were engaged, and in October 2017, Kelsey gave birth to their daughter, Kaylee. But there were cracks in the foundation from the very beginning. Despite being engaged and sharing a child together, Patrick and Kelsey never lived together. Their long-distance relationship continued even after Kaylee was born. The baby lived with Kelsey in her Woodland Park townhouse, and Kelsey would drive to Patrick's ranch on her days off. Patrick wanted Kelsey to move in with him, but there was a catch. She wouldn't just be moving in with Patrick. She'd be moving in with his mother, Sheila, too. Kelsey refused. She wanted to build a life with Patrick and Kaylee, just the three of them, not with his mother under the same roof. The disagreement created a standstill. Moving plans went nowhere. Then there were the financial troubles. Patrick was drowning in debt. A $72,000 loan default hung over his head. He owed Kelsey $700 a month in child support, and he hadn't paid a cent since July 2018. There was also a $400,000 inheritance dispute following his father's death earlier that year. And Patrick was listed as the beneficiary on Kelsey's life insurance policy, though it may have lapsed. Money wasn't the only red flag. When Kaylee was born in October 2017, Patrick had a violent outburst at the hospital, alarming enough that medical staff called social services. It should have been a warning sign, but Kelsey stayed. By late 2018, friends said the relationship was getting tougher. Kelsey confided in coworkers that she worried Patrick might be talking to an ex-girlfriend. She told friends she was struggling to juggle everything: her demanding job, the long commute, being a new mother, and a partner who seemed increasingly distant. Patrick had checked out, they said. He refused to come see her. His life wasn't changing to accommodate their family. All the compromises fell on Kelsey's shoulders. Still, she wasn't ready to give up on what they had. As 2018 came to a close and the holiday season arrived, Kelsey was trying to focus on what mattered: spending Thanksgiving with Kaylee, who was just over a year old. But on November 22, 2018, Kelsey Berreth would vanish without a trace, and the last person to see her alive would be the father of her child. Thanksgiving morning, November 22, 2018, started like any other holiday. Kelsey Berreth woke up in good spirits, ready to celebrate. She was baking cinnamon buns for Thanksgiving dinner, the smell of cinnamon and sugar filling her townhouse. She called her mother, Cheryl, to get the recipe details just right. Cheryl would later tell investigators that Kelsey sounded happy and fine. There was nothing unusual about their conversation, nothing that suggested anything was wrong. Kelsey was planning dinner. She wanted everything to be perfect. At 9:37 that morning, Kelsey sent a text to Patrick. "I bought some sweet potatoes in case you wanted some sweet potato casserole." She was clearly planning to spend the holiday with him, making sure he'd have his favorite dishes. At 12:27 p.m., surveillance cameras captured Kelsey at the Safeway in Woodland Park. She had little Kaylee with her, smiling and calm as she moved through the store. She was buying flowers, cider, ingredients for dip, a mother shopping for a holiday meal. The footage shows a woman with her whole life ahead of her. This was the last time anyone outside Patrick's circle would ever see Kelsey Berreth alive. But Patrick's story about that day, it didn't quite add up. Between 12:54 and 1:17 p.m., Patrick was spotted at a Walmart, and he already had Kaylee with him. He was carrying a baby carrier. If Kelsey had just been at Safeway with Kaylee at 12:27, how did Patrick already have the baby less than half an hour later? Patrick later told police that he and Kelsey had met in an alley to exchange Kaylee. He claimed that was the last time he saw her. According to Patrick, Kelsey had called him the day before Thanksgiving to break up with him. She couldn't handle the commute anymore, he said. She wanted space. Patrick claimed he'd given her personal items back during their meeting, including her handgun. That was his story, and he was sticking to it. But then came the silence. After 4:30 that afternoon, Kelsey's phone went dead. No more calls, no more texts. For a woman who spoke to her mother every single day without fail, this was unthinkable. No posts on social media, no contact with friends, nothing. Complete silence. 3 days later, on November 25th, strange text messages began appearing. Kelsey's boss at DOS Aviation received a text saying she wouldn't be at work that week. Patrick got a text, a breakup message asking for space. Cheryl received messages too, but something felt off. The tone didn't sound like Kelsey. The word choices seemed wrong. Friends and family read those texts with growing unease. These messages didn't sound like the woman they knew. Where was Kelsey, and why wasn't she calling her mother? Kelsey's mother, Cheryl, knew something was terribly wrong, because Kelsey never missed a day without calling. Never. And 19 days of silence was unthinkable. 19 days of silence from a woman who called her mother every single day without fail. The last time they'd spoken was Thanksgiving morning, November 22nd, when Kelsey had called for the cinnamon bun recipe. After that, nothing. On December 2nd, 2018, Cheryl reported Kelsey missing to Woodland Park Police. The next day, Commander Chris Adams began an active investigation. Officers arrived at Kelsey's townhouse at 4881 Old Farm Circle for a welfare check. Her car sat in the driveway. Inside, unwashed dishes, half-eaten food, flowers on the table. Those cinnamon buns from Thanksgiving, now 10 days old, still sat on the counter. Kelsey's belongings appeared untouched. Her car keys were inside, but her phone and purse were missing. No luggage was packed. To officers, there were no obvious signs of foul play. When police interviewed Patrick, his story raised questions. He repeated his claim. They'd met in an alley, exchanged Kaylee, and that was the last time he'd seen her. Then Patrick went further. He suggested Kelsey was unstable, possibly depressed. He hinted at drug abuse. Maybe she was in rehab somewhere. Friends and family were shocked. None of this was true. Coworkers at DOS Aviation had never seen signs of problems. Kelsey loved being a mother. She posted photos of Kaylee constantly. Everything Patrick was saying was a lie. Cheryl and Kelsey's brother Clint decided to check the townhouse themselves. They knew her place intimately. They could spot things police might miss. The moment they stepped inside, something felt wrong. The heat was cranked to maximum, sweltering, suffocating. The refrigerator looked recently wiped down, streaks still visible. A bathroom mat was missing. Then Clint saw it, what looked like blood on the toilet. They called investigators back immediately. This time, investigators returned with luminol and a cadaver dog. They turned off the lights and sprayed the chemical throughout the townhouse. The house erupted in an eerie blue glow. Blood was everywhere. The floor, walls splattered high up. The dishwasher, the stove, the coffee maker, even on the tin foil covering those Thanksgiving cinnamon buns. Bloody footprints led up the stairs. Blood behind the couch, under cabinets. The bathroom, blood on the toilet, tub, trash can, walls, floor. Someone had tried desperately to clean this scene, but luminol doesn't lie. DNA testing confirmed it. Kelsey's blood, all of it. Lead investigator CBI agent Greg Slater, 37 years on the force, stood in that house, taking it in. His first no-body case in his entire career. The sheer volume of blood was staggering. This isn't a woman who would have left on her own. Kelsey Berreth never left this house alive. Investigators knew Kelsey was dead, but they had no body, no murder weapon, and Patrick Frazee was sticking to his story. Then, a breakthrough in the cell phone data would lead them 800 miles away to a place Kelsey had never been. The investigation exploded. The FBI and CBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, immediately got involved. Chief Miles DeYoung held press conferences as the case gained national attention. On December 15, 2018, a $25,000 reward was offered for information. Vigils were organized throughout Woodland Park. Candlelight ceremonies filled Memorial Park as the community rallied to find Kelsey. But it was surveillance footage that would expose Patrick's lies. A neighbor's security camera pointed toward Kelsey's townhouse. The camera was motion activated and grainy. It captured about 50% of the movement. But what it did capture proved Patrick had been lying about everything. At 1:24 p.m. on November 22nd, Thanksgiving Day, the footage showed Patrick, Kelsey, and Kaylee entering the condo together. A poinsettia plant was visible in the frame. They didn't meet in an alley. All three went inside the house together. Then the camera captured something chilling. Patrick entering and exiting that townhouse 11 times throughout the day. In later footage, Patrick appeared alone with a large black tote in the bed of his truck. Meanwhile, CBI agent Greg Slater and Kevin Clark, a Colorado Springs PD analyst, pieced together phone records. They created a massive timeline on 6 25-square-foot poster boards, tracking every call, text, and cell tower ping. Both Patrick and Kelsey's phones connected to the same towers from November 22nd through the 25th. Their phones were together for days after Kelsey was last seen publicly. Then something strange happened. On November 25th at 5:13 p.m., Kelsey's phone pinged a tower in Gooding, Idaho, 800 miles from Woodland Park. Kelsey had never been to Idaho in her life. Why was her phone there? As investigators dug deeper, one number kept appearing. Connected to Idaho, connected to the crime scene in Colorado, in constant contact with Patrick throughout Kelsey's disappearance. The number traced to a 32-year-old nurse from Twin Falls, Idaho, Crystal Lee Kenny, commonly called Crystal. But who was she? What was her connection to Patrick? And why was Kelsey's phone in Idaho pinging towers at the same time as Crystal's phone? On December 20th, 2018, the FBI brought Crystal in for questioning at Colorado Springs Police Department. The interview lasted 4.5 hours. Her story was disjointed, vague, full of holes. She claimed she'd come to Colorado to look at a horse. Said she knew nothing about Kelsey's disappearance. Insisted she didn't know Kelsey or Kaylee. She couldn't explain why her phone pinged near the crime scene. But the evidence told a different story. Crystal's phone had pinged near Kelsey's home at the time of disappearance. Her phone and Kelsey's phone pinged the same Idaho towers at the same time. Blood from an unknown female found in Kelsey's home would later match Crystal's DNA. Phone records showed extensive contact with Patrick. Then Crystal's best friend came forward. Michelle Stein had known Crystal for over 20 years. Weeks earlier, Crystal had confided something deeply disturbing to Michelle. Michelle contacted investigators. What she told them would blow the case wide open. What Michelle Stein told investigators would reveal a plot so twisted, so calculated, so wicked and evil that even veteran detectives would struggle to believe it. Because Patrick Frazee hadn't just asked Crystal for help. He'd asked her to kill for him. But why? Crystal, as she was commonly called, was a 32-year-old nurse from Twin Falls. But her connection to Patrick ran deep. They'd met at a Teller County Fair dance back in 2006, when Crystal was just 20 years old. For 13 years, they'd maintained an on-again, off-again relationship. Crystal had recently divorced from Chad Lee, a marriage that lasted 8 years, ending in the summer of 2018. She had 2 children with Chad. In March 2018, Crystal and Patrick's affair rekindled, turning intimate once again. But Patrick kept secrets. For 5 months, he didn't tell Crystal about Kelsey or baby Kaylee. Back in 2016, Crystal had become pregnant by Patrick. When he showed no happiness about it, she got an abortion. Then, in October 2018, Crystal was shocked to learn Patrick had a daughter. But Patrick knew how to manipulate her. He told Crystal that Kelsey was an abusive mother. He claimed Kelsey hit Kaylee with an iron, called her a drug addict, said she was unfit. Patrick painted himself as a protective father, desperate to save his daughter from abuse. And he needed Crystal's help to do it. What happened next would shock even veteran detectives. On September 2018, Patrick asked Crystal to poison Kelsey's Starbucks coffee, specifically a caramel macchiato, Kelsey's favorite. Crystal drove over 750 miles from Idaho to Colorado. She went to Kelsey's door, pretending to be a thankful neighbor, holding the poisoned coffee. But Crystal couldn't go through with it. Patrick was angry, but he told her there'd be another chance. On October 2018, Patrick gave Crystal a metal pipe, told her to hit Kelsey on the head with it, kill her with blunt force trauma. Crystal drove to Colorado again, but once more, she couldn't bring herself to kill someone. Patrick was getting more frustrated. Then, on November 2018, Patrick gave Crystal a baseball bat, told her to wait outside Kelsey's house. When Kelsey came out, swing away, beat her to death right there. Crystal sat on the curb with the bat in her hands, questioning how she'd gotten to this point. Then she left without doing it. At this point, Patrick was beyond furious. He told Crystal he had a bigger heart and cared more about Kaylee than she did. He manipulated her with guilt, making her feel like she was the one failing that little girl. Crystal's best friend, Michelle Stein, would later testify that Crystal had confided about these solicitations. Crystal was fearful for her life, Michelle said. Patrick had threatened Crystal and her family. Michelle believed Crystal was trapped in an abusive relationship. But why was Patrick so desperate? The financial pressures were mounting. A $72,000 loan default, $700 a month in child support unpaid since July, a $400,000 inheritance dispute, and Patrick was the beneficiary on Kelsey's life insurance policy, though it may have lapsed. Patrick was facing financial ruin. 3 times Patrick asked Crystal to kill Kelsey. 3 times she refused. He'd been trying for months to get someone else to do his dirty work. When Crystal wouldn't do it, Patrick Frazee decided he'd handle it himself. Crystal refused 3 times. So on Thanksgiving Day, 2018, Patrick Frazee decided he'd handle it himself. And what Crystal would later testify about, what Patrick confessed to her he did, would be one of the most brutal crimes Colorado had ever seen. But first, he had to be caught. The case was building. With Crystal's cooperation, investigators now had key testimony connecting Patrick to a murder plot. Phone records confirmed Crystal's story. Surveillance footage corroborated the timeline. Blood evidence saturated the crime scene. But still, there was no body. Less than 1 month after Kelsey was reported missing, justice began to move. On December 21st, 2018, Patrick Frazee was arrested at his ranch in Florissant. He was taken into custody without incident and held at Teller County Jail. The charges were severe. First-degree murder after deliberation, 3 counts of solicitation to commit first-degree murder, 1 count for each attempt with Crystal, the poison, the pipe, and the bat, tampering with a deceased human body, crime of violence sentence enhancers. In total, Patrick faced 6 felony charges. Patrick pleaded not guilty to all of them. He maintained his innocence. He claimed he didn't know what happened to Kelsey. He stuck to his story about meeting her in an alley to exchange Kaylee, insisting that was the last time he'd seen her. The national news picked up the story. Press conferences filled television screens across the country. Chief Miles DeYoung addressed the media with a statement that brought some relief to the community. "We believe we have arrested the person responsible." Woodland Park reacted with a mixture of shock and cautious hope. Finally, an arrest. Finally, someone was being held accountable. But prosecutors faced a serious dilemma. Crystal Lee Kenny was being questioned extensively, and the question weighing on DA Dan May and his team was, what do we do with her? Crystal had helped cover up the crime. She'd driven hundreds of miles to clean blood from a murder scene. She'd participated in the aftermath. By any measure, Crystal had committed serious crimes, tampering with evidence, obstruction, cover-up. But here was the problem. Crystal was the only person who knew what Patrick told her he did. Without her testimony, there was no body, no confession, no witness to Patrick's account of what happened inside that townhouse on Thanksgiving Day. Without Crystal, getting a conviction would be much, much harder. Patrick's defense would be far stronger if she couldn't testify against him. The prosecutors faced an impossible choice. Let Crystal walk for her crimes in exchange for testimony that could seal Patrick's fate, or charge her fully and risk losing the only witness who could tell the jury what really happened. It was a devil's bargain, and DA Dan May knew it. Prosecutors knew they needed Crystal. Without her testimony, without her account of what Patrick told her he did, their case would be much weaker. So they made a difficult decision that would spark outrage across the country. They made a deal with the devil.
We did a deal with the devil. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Prosecutors didn't like the deal they made with Crystal Lee, but it did work. Thanks to her, Patrick Frazee will spend the rest of his life in prison for killing his one-time fiancée, the mother of his child, Kelsey Berreth. And today we learned Patrick Frazee has notified the courts he plans to appeal his conviction. Tomorrow, Crystal Lee is back in court to be sentenced for her role in that crime.
Yeah, 9 News reporter Jennifer Meckles now walking us through that plea deal, which could see her spend as many as 3 years in prison.
We're inside Kelsey's apartment with Crystal.
Investigators called Crystal Lee a key witness in the Kelsey Berreth murder case.
When you came in, what did you see?
When I first walked in, I saw blood all over the floor. I saw blood up the wall.
Crystal told investigators that Patrick Frazee beat Kelsey to death with a baseball bat in her home and that she helped clean up the crime scene.
Did you say that you cleaned off some of the appliances?
I did. I wiped there was blood on the front of the dishwasher. There was blood on the front of the stove.
Crystal said she knew Frazee wanted Kelsey dead, that he tried to get her to do it first. She admitted to the cleanup, dumping Kelsey's phone, and helping burn evidence.
This is where the aluminum top was, and this is where the burn occurred.
There's no doubt that the prosecution will ask for the full 3 years, and I suspect the judge will throw whatever books at her he possibly can.
Crystal's cooperation and testimony helped prosecutors put Patrick Frazee behind bars for life. On Tuesday, she will earn her own sentence.
This is not somebody who's going to get probation or even the benefit of the doubt. The reality is that Crystal Lee could have prevented the murder if she'd gone to the authorities the first time she was solicited to kill another human being. She chose not to.
On February 8, 2019, Crystal Lee Kenny stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to one count: tampering with physical evidence. Not murder, not accessory to murder, just tampering with evidence. Her sentence? 3 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections, the maximum for the charge. In exchange, she agreed to full cooperation and testimony against Patrick Frazee. The controversy was immediate. The Berreth family was devastated. Public outrage exploded. Crystal could have prevented the murder by warning Kelsey. She drove 13 hours to clean up blood. She watched a body burn. And she got 3 years? District Attorney Dan May knew how it looked. He addressed it head-on. We made a deal with the devil. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I'm not proud of that. But there's no question Kelsey wouldn't have had sure justice today without making that deal. He added, it's the defendant who picked her, referring to Patrick's choice of Crystal as his accomplice. Without Crystal's testimony, there was no body, no confession, no witness to what Patrick told her he did. Conviction would be far more difficult. Crystal's attorney, Drew Nielsen, argued that Crystal acted out of fear. Patrick had written letters from jail asking an inmate to kill Crystal's family. She had courage to tell truth regardless of expense to herself, Nielsen said. Crystal's friend Laura Stutzman added that Crystal was very, very remorseful and a fantastic mom. Michelle Stein, Crystal's best friend of over 20 years, testified that Crystal had confided in her about the solicitations. Crystal was fearful for her life and her family. Patrick had threatened them. As part of the cooperation agreement, Crystal did a video walkthrough of Kelsey's townhouse. She showed investigators exactly where the blood was and described the cleaning process in chilling detail. Blood all over the floor, she said. Blood up the wall. Blood on the dishwasher, the stove, the coffee maker. Blood on the tin foil covering the cinnamon roll pan. Blood spatter so high up the walls she had to climb to reach it. Bloody footprints at the stairs. Blood behind the couch. Blood throughout the bathroom, the toilet, walls, floor, tub exterior, trash can. Then came Crystal's most disturbing admission. I left blood spots. She claimed she purposely left some blood spots because she wanted Patrick to get caught. She specifically left blood on the fireplace and between floorboards, where bleach couldn't reach. She put towels in the washing machine, but didn't run it. She wanted evidence to remain. The preparation was methodical. Crystal had packed latex gloves, a white cleaning suit, booties, bleach, trash bags, and a hairnet. She'd swapped cars with a friend to avoid detection, changed her work shift to have time, then drove 13 hours overnight from Idaho to Colorado, arriving around 6:30 a.m. on November 24th. During the drive, Patrick told her there was a lot of blood to clean up. He left keys on the gate for her. She cleaned for 3 to 4 hours with bleach, throwing away blood-stained toys and items. The walkthrough showed investigators where the blood was, where Crystal had cleaned for hours trying to erase evidence of violence. But it didn't show them what happened. It didn't show them how Kelsey died. For that, they would need Crystal to take the stand at trial. And what she would testify Patrick told her he did would horrify even the most seasoned investigators. October 28, 2019. Nearly a year after Kelsey vanished, Patrick Frazie's trial began in Cripple Creek at the Teller County Courthouse. Judge Scott Sells presided. After jury selection on October 31st, 9 women and 7 men, plus 4 alternates were seated. Opening statements began November 1st. The prosecution team consisted of DA Dan May, lead prosecutor Beth Reed and Jennifer Veman. Public defenders Adam Steigerwald and Ashley Fridovich Porter represented Patrick. Over 60 witnesses would testify. Over 600 pieces of evidence would be presented. Cameras were banned. Only sketch artists allowed. Security was extremely tight. Between November 1st and 8th, star witness Crystal Lee Kenny took the stand. For 2 full days, she testified. Prosecutors asked her to tell the jury what Patrick had told her happened that day. Now, for the first time, the full horror would be revealed. According to Crystal's testimony, at 1:24 p.m. on November 22nd, all 3, Patrick, Kelsey, and Kaylee, entered the condo together. Surveillance confirmed it. Phone records showed both phones connected to the same tower from 1 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. Patrick asked Kelsey to smell scented candles he brought. He blindfolded her with a sweater, told her to close her eyes and guess the scent. It was a game, he said. Then he grabbed a baseball bat. Blood pattern expert Jonathan Priest would later testify, people aren't easy to kill. Patrick struck Kelsey 10 to 15 times with that bat. Blood exploded across the living room, spattered on walls, the coffee maker, family portrait, stuffed animals, baby gate. Blood even on the tin foil covering those Thanksgiving cinnamon buns. Blood spatter reached so high, someone had to climb to reach it. Forensic analysis determined Kelsey was on the living room floor when struck. Some of her teeth were knocked out during the attack. Kaylee, 1 year old, was in her jumper in the next room, just feet away while her mother was being beaten to death. According to Patrick's confession to Crystal, Kelsey begged, "Please stop." But Patrick didn't stop. Not until Kelsey Berreth, 29-year-old pilot, devoted mother, beloved daughter, was dead on her living room floor. Patrick later told Crystal, "It wasn't humane." He also said, "You don't know how hard it is to have Thanksgiving dinner after killing her." Because that's exactly what he did. Killed Kelsey, then sat down with his family for Thanksgiving dinner. Surveillance captured Patrick making 11 trips in and out of the townhouse. He forced Kelsey's body into a black plastic tote, took it to Nash Ranch where he had grazing lease and barn access, and temporarily hid it there. He went to Walmart with Kaylee and bought a gas can, topped up his truck, called his mother Sheila and Crystal. Crystal understood the code. "You have a mess to clean up." Patrick arrived nearly 3 hours late to family Thanksgiving dinner and sat down to eat while Kelsey's body lay hidden. Other witnesses painted a damning picture. Cheryl testified Patrick never called when Kelsey was missing, never checked on Kaylee, showed no concern. Joseph Moore, Patrick's friend, testified about an April 2018 conversation 7 months before the murder. Patrick had told Moore, "I figured out a way to kill her." Moore replied, "Don't even talk about things like that." Patrick grinned. "No body, no crime, right?" Moore thought it was a dark joke. Now he realized Patrick had been planning this for months. Forensic testimony detailed the carnage. DNA analysts confirmed the blood throughout the house matched Kelsey's profile. Blood pattern experts described spatter consistent with multiple strikes to the head while the victim was on the floor. Crystal's testimony continued with the cover-up. On November 24th, she and Patrick drove to Nash Ranch to retrieve the body in the tote. They brought it back to Patrick's ranch in Florissant, placed the tote in an aluminum water trough with no bottom, poured 5 gallons of gasoline over it, added motor oil as accelerant. Patrick collected wood, set it on fire. Crystal threw in Kelsey's Bible and some of Kaylee's toys. The fire burned for hours. Patrick's mother, Sheila, stood on the porch and watched. She could be seen between 2 trees, looking toward the burn area, witnessing her son burning Kelsey's body. She did nothing to stop it. Never called police. Crystal drove back to Idaho with Kelsey's phone and gun. On November 25th, she sent fake texts from Kelsey's phone to her boss, to Patrick, to Cheryl. A critical mistake? She turned the phone on in Idaho. It pinged Gooding, Idaho towers, 800 miles from Woodland Park, at the same time as Crystal's phone. This became key evidence. Crystal destroyed the phone by burning it. Twin Falls police later found charred pieces 500 feet from her home. Patrick had made 19 calls pretending to be Kelsey between November 22nd and December 4th. Patrick and Crystal spoke for over 9 hours total during the cover-up. Additional evidence mounted. Surveillance showed Patrick filling a 5-gallon container with gasoline. He'd gone to a Verizon store, asking if they could recover data from a broken phone, trying to establish an innocent explanation. FBI searches of the ranch turned up teeth in multiple rooms, a sheet with bloodstains, a burn scar visible in gravel, a partial human tooth at the burn site, and bloodhound dogs hitting on a hay bale with decomposition smell. A jailhouse inmate testified Patrick had passed him toilet paper notes with a hit list. Crystal Lee Kenny, Chad Lee, Michelle Stein, Joseph Moore, and CBI agent Greg Slater. One note read, "I'd really like to see Crystal with a bullet in her head. No video, no weapon, nobody, no forensics." Patrick was trying to orchestrate murders from jail. The Berreth family sobbed and held each other. Father Darrell nodded with each revelation. Jurors were visibly shaken. Patrick sat stone-faced, showing no emotion. When please stop testimony came, audible gasps filled the courtroom. The jury had heard everything. The blindfold, the bat, Kelsey's last words, the burning, Sheila watching from the porch, the jailhouse hit list, every horrific detail. And now, after weeks of testimony, after hearing from over 60 witnesses, they had to decide, was Patrick Frazee guilty of murder? On November 18, 2019, closing arguments began. Lead prosecutor Beth Reed told the jury the evidence was compelling and overwhelming. No body, no crime. That's what the defendant has been banking on. But they had Crystal's testimony, forensics, phone records, and surveillance. Public defender Adam Steigerwald argued it was circumstantial. If it is your plan to murder someone, you don't tell half the people you know. He tried to poke holes in Crystal's credibility. Patrick chose not to testify. The defense called 0 witnesses. The jury deliberated less than 4 hours. Monday, November 18, 2019. The verdict: guilty on all 6 counts. First-degree murder. 3 counts: solicitation, tampering with a deceased human body, crime of violence. Patrick sat stone-faced. The Berreth family sobbed. Father Darrell nodded solemnly with each guilty count. Sentencing immediately followed. Judge Scott Sells presided, his voice cracking with emotion. A relative read Cheryl's victim impact statement. Patrick had tortured to death Kelsey. The family lived in fear for months. Thanksgiving was now the anniversary of their daughter's death forever. Kaylee will eventually know the story. How she was present during the torture and murder of her mother. Kaylee, now 2, still called out for Mama at night. Despite everything, the family chose not to seek the death penalty. We believe in a forgiving Savior and hope that Patrick will take this opportunity to repent. Judge Sells addressed Patrick. Your actions were vicious, senseless, without reason or explanation. Kelsey spent her last night caring for you, and you beat her. You burned her body like a piece of trash. Your crimes deserve absolute maximum punishment, and I intend to do that. The sentence: life without parole, plus 156 years, plus 12 years, plus 5 years parole. Patrick was escorted out. He will never be free. December 9, 2019. Transferred to Denver Reception Diagnostic Center. December 17, Colorado State Penitentiary. December 19, Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility, Ordway, where he remains as of 2025. In 2020, Patrick wrote CBS 4, "I didn't do it. I want my daughter to know I did not kill her mother." In 2023, the Colorado Court of Appeals denied his appeal. Patrick Frazee will die in prison. But Crystal's sentence sparked outrage. January 28, 2020, Crystal Lee Kenny sentenced to 3 years for tampering with evidence. The Berreth family said the only thing she didn't do was swing the bat. An online petition with nearly 9,000 signatures demanded she stay in prison. Attorney Drew Nielsen argued Crystal acted out of fear. Patrick had written jail letters asking an inmate to kill Crystal's family. Judge Sells told Crystal, "You could have warned her. You could have called law enforcement. You could have prevented the murder. Her actions were cold, calculating, cruel, and devoid. He disagreed with the light sentence, but was bound by law. February 2021. Appeals court ruled 3 years exceeded maximum. March 23, 2021. Resentenced to 18 months. March 25, 2021. Released on parole after serving 14 to 18 months. DA Dan May defended the deal. We made a deal with the devil. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I'm not proud of that. But there's no question Kelsey wouldn't have had sure justice today without making that deal. One detective reflected, Crystal did some horrific things. But without Crystal, we wouldn't be where we are today. Another said, I'm still torn between empathy and being appalled by what she did. 2 people convicted. Patrick got life plus 156 years. Crystal walked free after less than 2 years. Justice had been served in the courtroom. But for Cheryl and the Berreth family, one painful reality remained. They had no body to bury, no grave to visit, no place to lay flowers and mourn. Kelsey had been reduced to ash and scattered across a Colorado ranch, leaving her family with nothing but memories, and a little girl who would grow up without her mother. Lead investigator CBI agent Greg Slater, 37 years on the force, faced his first no-body case. The hardest part wasn't solving it, it was what came after. How do I tell Cheryl? He said. How do you tell a mother and father that your daughter's been burned? I couldn't do it. No remains were ever found, nothing to bury. Investigators sifted through Midway landfill in Fountain, Colorado, for over a month. They found nothing. Kelsey's body had been completely destroyed. The family has no grave to visit, nowhere to lay flowers, nowhere to mourn. After Patrick's arrest, an emergency custody hearing was held. Patrick's parents, including Sheila, fought for custody. Despite Sheila watching the burning, they wanted Kaylee. The judge ruled, Kaylee stays with maternal grandparents Cheryl and Daryl Berreth. Permanent custody was awarded January 2019. Kaylee is now 8 years old, living with Cheryl, being raised with love. Sheila Frazee was never charged. She watched the burning from her porch. She pleaded the fifth at Patrick's preliminary hearing. Prosecutors wanted to question her about the phone call, witnessing the burn and evidence disposal. No charges were filed. She walked away free. Woodland Park, a town of 8,000, was forever changed. Volunteers rehabilitated Kelsey's townhouse, donating skills and materials. This is our way of showing Woodland Park isn't about Patrick Frazee. It's about good people. Annual vigils continue at Memorial Park. Candlelight ceremonies mark every November 22nd. The community ensures Kelsey is never forgotten. No grave, no remains, nothing but memories and a little girl who would grow up without her mother. But Kelsey Berreth was so much more than what was done to her, and her legacy would ensure she'd never be forgotten. Kelsey Berreth may not have a grave, but her memory soars in the lives she touched. Her uncle Scott Morin remembered her hugs. Not only was she loved, but she loved everyone else. Her boss Raymond Sebring said her stature did not reflect her heart or character. Despite her small frame, she could intimidate large football players in the cockpit. There was no doubt who was in charge. Co-worker Chris Paulhamus called her a quiet, unassuming, beautiful, gentle soul. It's important for Kaylee to know how amazing her mother was. David Duray, I'll remember her kindness and smile the most. Kelsey's legacy lives on in concrete ways. An observation tower at Doss Aviation in Pueblo bears her name. An aviation scholarship was established in her honor. Patrick was court-ordered to fund it. A memorial bench sits in Memorial Park. 80 flight instructors performed a missing man formation flyover at a private ceremony. Dollar bills signed by grateful students still mark her memory. On her desk sat a Bible calendar. The last page she opened, November 21st, 2018, Philippians 2:13, "For it is God who works in you." Prosecutor Jennifer Veman said simply, she mattered. CBI agent Greg Slater reflected, "I can't fathom why Patrick did it. She was so well respected, revered, appreciated. How dedicated to not only her daughter, but to her country. I hope if Kelsey's soul has ability, she knows people did care. We all cared. She was and still is important. She always will be." Cheryl chose forgiveness over hate, keeping Kelsey's memory alive every day. Kaylee is being raised surrounded by love and stories of her mother's strength. This was a senseless murder, no clear motive. But what is clear, Kelsey Berreth mattered. She was a daughter, mother, pilot, teacher, friend. Her memory flies on. Kelsey's story is one we must never forget. Not just a tragedy, but a reminder to trust our instincts and recognize warning signs before it's too late. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, resources are available. I've included links in the description below. If this case moved you, please share it so others can know Kelsey's story. Subscribe to this channel to help keep victims' stories alive. Every view, every share ensures Kelsey Berreth is remembered. Leave a comment. Where are you watching from? Did you know about this case? Thank you to the investigators who never gave up searching for truth. Thank you to the Woodland Park community that came together for Kelsey. And thank you for watching and remembering. Kelsey Berreth, September 15th, 1989, November 22nd, 2018, forever 29. Forever a pilot. Forever a mother. Forever remembered.